Paramount Plus launched on Thursday or Friday, and I checked it out, and I have to say it is definitely one of the more disappointing streaming service launches, particularly for a main streaming service from a major corporation. To my understanding, this was just a simple rebrand of CBS All Access. I never had CBS All Access, so I can't talk on that at all. What I saw in it was kind of interesting because it felt sort of tried to be organized. They have some categories like TV and movies and live TV, and then they have a thing called brands. What's brands? You scroll down and then you see things like MTV, Comedy Central, things like that, Nickelodeon. And so, like, instead of calling them channels, they call them brands, which is such weird corporate speak. They didn't have a great, like, Star Trek is all throughout it. There's a section for Star Trek and TV, but they should have just a tab for Star Trek, considering how many Star Trek things they have on this. Like, it would just be easier if they're just like, here's the Star Trek tab, Paramount, you are so proud of Star Trek, where it's not just the shows, but it's the shows and the movies. I do think could be popular because CBS in particular has a lot of gigantic shows, not just like in America, but internationally, particularly with things like NCIS and things like that. So I could actually see this becoming bigger if they have a little more promise. But from watching it, like, it was interesting seeing Sponge on the Run there. It was interesting seeing a lot of other things there, but they don't really seem to understand how to do catalog stuff very well. Like, Paramount has a long history of movies, and they didn't have a lot of classics in there. They did have War of the Worlds, I did find that, but I didn't see a lot of other stuff. And it's like, why have this huge library that you needed? Like, that felt insanely disappointing. It did have some interesting stuff like Wonder Chosen season 1 was on there, although I didn't see episode 7, but I've heard other people say they did, so maybe it just wasn't loading for me or something. I don't think I've ever seen Wonder Chosen on a streaming service, so kudos to them for launching with that, by the way. That's pretty cool. And then they also have Race for Your Life Charlie Brown and Bon Voyage Charlie Brown, which I haven't seen on a streaming service. It was pretty prominent too, which I thought was kind of nice, giving some of the Charlie Brown movies. And then they have weird things like Comedy Central. They didn't really have a good thing with their comedy movies. So one thing, if you go to Comedy Central and you just check on like everything they have, they don't have so many shows as they have like a bazillion comedy specials, which is fine if you like that. I wish they just had a section that's comedy specials, because that also bleeds into like comedy movies are mainly the comedy specials, which is like not all of them like came out in theaters. Like, you had the Kevin Hart one and like Eddie Murphy's Delirious and stuff, you're like, sure, or the Richard Pryor one, but not every one is a movie. And it just got like sort of confusing. It's like, I just want to watch comedy movies, man. I don't want these comedies. And there's just like bad organization at that point. I see a super chat from Will said, for some reason, Scott Frank's The Lookout is on there. Really? Yeah, I noticed sometimes. That's the other thing. Thank you, Will, for bringing this up. And cheers to you. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for your generosity as well. The other thing is sometimes it just felt like they'd have a weird random movie. Like, they have some 90s stuff. They have some stuff like that. It doesn't feel like they have like Netflix and even HBO Max is very pointed at the certain demos they're going to. It seems like I heard a long time ago, a thing about Netflix was that they had their fingers on a lot of different pies. And this doesn't, it feels like they want to be mainstream. They sort of want to be cult, but they haven't really decided which angle to go in. If they decide to be totally CBS All Access or CBS or whatever, that's fine. But it just feels like they have a lot of opportunity. Like, they have Beavis and Butthead, they have Daria, things like that, but they're not like pointing you in either direction. It's like, it was hard to navigate things of that nature. I didn't really like it. They, like, for example, they had Crocodile Dundee 2 and 3, but not 1. Like, what? Really, guys? Like, how am I going to complete the Croc trilogy? I just think some of the options were kind of boring, and I didn't really like it. And then Camp Coral wouldn't load. Like, I got other things to load, like Sponge on the Run, which I didn't watch. I watched on French Netflix, and other things, but Camp Coral actually wouldn't load. So I actually had to review Camp Coral on this. I had to watch Camp Coral on YouTube. I couldn't watch Camp Coral on Paramount Plus. I think Paramount Plus, basically the problem is like HBO Max didn't have its selections and felt like a mess in a certain case, and now it's like slowly become much more of a favorite. It's like grown on me. Paramount Plus, like I scrolled around and I'm already immediately thinking, like, I had to put a card on there. I'm immediately thinking, like, this week, Jim, remember to cancel it. So it's basically like, it's not even going on my Roku. Like, this is something that I like, the way we watch TV. It might. Oh yeah, and that's the other thing. I looked up their kids stuff, and they didn't have a lot of the stuff like Sophie watches. It's on Nick Jr., which was one of, actually, for real, that was one of the reasons, because I heard they're killing off all their like sub apps, basically, like the Nick Jr. Roku thing and stuff. I thought, oh, well, if they have all the stuff they barely have on Nick Jr., that'd be great. And they didn't have a lot of her shows that weren't on there anymore. And so that was something that sort of killed it for me. And I don't understand, like, why am I paying for fucking commercials? Like, guys, like, I understand you do that with cable, but, like, give me a free option then. Like, there should be a free option if you have an ad sales team. Like, Peacock has a free option, and I use Peacock mainly to watch just the Amber Ruffin show, but still, like, I use that service sometimes. And with Paramount Plus, like, I'm just gonna definitely cancel it. Like, you know, I might pick it up later if they have, I'm interested in the offering and stuff, but I just think right now, what? David Hyde Pierce isn't gonna be in the Frasier sequel? I'm sorry, what the fuck? I didn't know about that. Well, then just fuck that. Also, hello, Super Kirby, dude. I didn't really see the use for it. And here's the other thing about it is, like, Tubi became big because of all the weird shit they had on it. And this, other than Wonder Chosen, which is very promising, and I will give Paramount Plus a lot for having the season of Wonder Chosen. Check out the 30-day free trial, watch Wonder Chosen, then just cancel that shit real quick. But just, like, that is something that I'm like, oh, I'm interested in that. It just, other than Star Trek, which I understand is sort of a cult thing, but not really. They're not really appealing to, like, the weirder cult stuff. They're not trying to get multiple different fan bases. They're very targeted in terms with certain ones and sort of ignoring the rest and slightly acknowledging the other ones. It's sort of like doing a streaming service without actually getting into the economics of actual streaming, and I found that to be sort of disappointing as a viewer, because it didn't feel like a streaming service like Tubi, which I fall in love with, which I also think they own, Viacom and all that stuff, that those are able to appeal to multiple demographics in my own house. And this one kind of kept failing till I eventually just wanted nothing really to do with it. So I think in terms of one of the major ones, it's like a little above Quibi, but not by a lot, because I actually watched things on Quibi before I canceled it. So